Maces are one of the least popular weapon types in Guild Wars 2 because the animations are generally slow and not that much impact, and the skins aren't really great. But with the release of the Rangers Maces, I think those are the best way to play Maces on any class. So in this video, I'm going to go over how the Maces work in general, what their mechanics are, what a build you might use them for in World vs. World and PvP, and then we'll go over some gameplay commentary of how these skills work in a situation. The main mechanic of Maces is the Nature's Strength buff. Whenever you use one of your Mace abilities, you'll gain a stack of Nature's Strength, and this will do nothing until you get 5 stacks, at which point you'll gain a lot of damage and healing increases, and then you'll recharge all of your Mace skills. So it's better to have Mace because you have more ways to gain more strength, and you also get more of your skills back when you do get it. You can also go for like a Warhorn offhand, but it's a little bit less greedy and less rewarding if you do so. And generally both the main hand and the offhand skills are pretty good, so it's kind of worth it. So let's go over the skills. Now the auto attack chain will give you a Nature's Strength stack, but if you are at 4 stacks, it will not give you that final stack to get you into Nature's Strength. So what that means is if you're at 4 stacks, you need to use one of your 2 through 5 skills to get that final one, which is kind of nice because you don't want to waste the potential to recharge a skill. Say if you have all your skills off cooldown, you'll want to get one of those back. Now the 2 skill is an AoE that does a delayed regeneration effect. It's just nice to use this off cooldown even if it doesn't hit the enemy, because it gives you some healing and your pet can get the regeneration as well, which would help it survive and give you Celestial Avatar regeneration. Now the 3 skill is a combo finisher blast, which is a leap, and an AoE stun that gives AoE protection to you and allies. And it'll also heal your pet, which would also heal you if you're a soul beast. So it's a pretty powerful skill. It's pretty overloaded with a bunch of effects, and it's a great combo enabler because it's a huge stun, and if you get this recharged from the Nature's Strength, you can stun them twice in a row for a lot of CC chains. Now the 4 skill is a kind of quick attack. It's just nice to use this when the enemy is stunned because it's free damage, but it also gives you barrier and condition cleanse, and more of those if you hit something with it. So you get more value if you use it defensively, but if you don't need the defense, it can just do a decent amount of damage and give you more stacks. And then the final 5th skill is a chain of hits, and the final hit will give you a daze on the enemy and will give you 2 stacks of Nature's Strength. This is pretty important to use after the 3 skill because you want to keep them in place. And then the cast time of this is a little bit longer than the actual stun of the 3 skill, but if you've got some traits or sigils that give you extra stun duration, then they'll be stunned for the entire duration of your Mace 5, and they'll get hit by that, and then they'll get dazed. So it's kind of nice to use the 3 into the 5 pretty much to make sure that it lands. And if you reset all of them, then you can use that again and get a lot of value, but you cannot get a second reset on Force of Nature because you get the tapped out debuff, which means you cannot gain Nature's Strength for another 10 seconds. So you generally want to do a combo, get your Nature's Strength up, and then max it out, do the combo again, save your 3 skill, if possible, for the combo into another weapon set, because the stun is really nice for enabling another damage combo in your other weapon set. And yeah, pretty much that's how the Maces work. The build I would use relies on 100% crit chance modifiers from Remorseless and the tankiness of the new Wilderness Survival. So the gear I would use is a mix of a Dragon's and Crusader's armor. This gives you a lot of toughness and vitality and gives you about as much power and ferocity as you can get while being still tanky, because this is a full melee build, but you need to survive in melee combat because it's very risky. So we've got a little bit of toughness here from the Crusader, but you can go for full Dragons, or you could even go Zerker if you don't really care about the survivability at all. And then we've got the Relic of the Midnight King. So whenever you disable an enemy, you will get Fury. The Fury is nice because it gives you the triggering of the Remorseless trait, which gives you the 100% crit on your next attack. So we're relying on 100% crit on heavy hitting singular abilities like the Greatsword 2, and that'll give us a lot of our damage while still being kind of like this tanky Bruiser. We've also got the Rune of the Cavalier because we're not really gaining much access to swiftness on this build, so we need movement speed and we want power and toughness, so those are nice stats to get along with it. For the Mace, I go for Celerity and Absorption. You want the quickness after you disable an enemy on your Mace, because that's generally when you're going to do your combo. So you can do Mace 3 and then Mace 5 while you've got the quickness, or you do Mace 3 and then you swap the Greatsword with the quickness. And then Absorption is really nice because removing boons is always nice in World vs. World. And on the Greatsword, that's our main burst weapon, but it's also kind of our defensive weapon because it has a lot of evades, mobility, and blocks. So it's just kind of nice to stick on Greatsword as kind of like your main weapon. And then maces are like the supplementary or the combo enabler weapon. If you want to run this in PvP, then go for the Valkyrie Amulet, Relic of the Midnight King. We go for the Rune of the Traveler for the movement speed, and then Savagery for the extra stun duration, and Absorption to steal those boons, and then of course Energy Cleansing on the Greatsword. So the traits are Marksmanship, Wilderness, Survival. We want Marksmanship because the Remorseless trait, obviously, that's our main synergy. We get extra CC duration from Moment of Clarity, which we have a lot of dazes and stuns on this build. And then I go for the Lesser Signet of Stone in World vs. World. In PvP, this doesn't last as long, but in World vs. World, it's 5 seconds of immunity to power damage. So your elite skill is going to give you cleansing and a water field and stability, and now it's also going to give you immunity to physical damage. So it's just a heavy defensive option. And if you really wanted to, you could go for the pet swap to give weakness. But since this build doesn't rely on the pet pretty much at all, I try to remove the reliance on the pet at all so that it can just die, and if it's fine if it dies, so that I don't need to pet swap it at all. So yeah, I go for that. But in PvP, right, like it's not as good, so maybe you could go for this in PvP. And then for Wilderness Survival, we're just going to go for as tanky as possible. So we've got Oakheart Salve, we get regeneration often, and we also get regeneration from our heal skill, the Healing Spring, and from our Mace 2 is going to give us some regeneration, and that gives us 5% damage reduction while we have regeneration. And then we've also got protection on dodge and healing whenever we have protection. Mace 3 gives us protection, Protect Me gives us protection and dodging, so we've got a lot of healing from protection and survivability. We've got a lot of damage reduction from power. So this counters power builds pretty hard. And then Survival Instinct gives us even more damage reduction. It gives us a little bit more damage when we're above 50% health, like strike damage, so our power damage is going to hit harder. And then a little bit more damage reduction when we're below 50%. You don't really have to think about this, but essentially just more stats. And then we go for Carnivore, which is a new trait. Whenever you disable an enemy, you get lifesteal. So we have so many disables on this build that even if you're not critting, because we don't have a lot of crit synergy, right? Like we have pretty much only a crit on one ability after we do a disable, and then after that we're not going to crit that much. So it's nice that we have Carnivore because that doesn't scale with crit at all. It only scales with power and healing. So we're going to get maximum value from the Carnivore, which is going to help us do more damage, and then we're going to have like crits here and there. So it's kind of like a Bruiser build where you've got burst but a lot of survivability. And then in Druid we go for the CC whenever we enter Celestial Avatar. We've got the stealth and super speed when we leave Celestial Avatar, and then of course Eclipse, which is just a lot of conditions that can be great for a power build, like Immobilize on the CA3, we've got Chill on the CA4, and we've got some Poison on the CA2. So the main combo that you want to be doing on this build is using the Chak Striker's F2 to create a lightning field, which you can use with your Greatsword 3 to leap into, which will daze. Now, doing this will daze the enemy, but also give you Remorseless, so you can land your Greatsword 2 with the 100% crit chance. From there, you want to use the Hilt Bash into the Greatsword 2 again, because it recharges the Greatsword 2, gives you another CC, which will give you Remorseless. Try to hit from behind, but it can be pretty hard to land the Hilt Bash. So if you don't land the Hilt Bash, what you can do is use Maul, and then precast Glyph of Equality into that, and that will CC them while you're in the animation. and will allow you to get the Remorseless to trigger. Now you can use your 4 to block and get another CC into a Greatsword 4, or what you can do is you can go into Celestial Avatar and you can do the 5 and the 2 and the 3 or whatever at the start. But what I like to do, which is not so often done, is you use the 3 right before you leave, and that CCs them and immobilizes them. So it's a daze plus an immobilize, which is basically a stun because of the Eclipse trait. And then you can use the Greatsword 2 while they're immobilized there. And that gives you also super speed, so you can engage on the enemy while they're dazed like that from afar, and then get in that Greatsword 2, because there's essentially no animation on the Greatsword 2 after that, because you've just gone into Celestial Avatar and then you left it, so you're in stealth, right, because of the Eclipse trait or the Celestial Shadow trait. So yeah, generally like what I'll do is I'll just go in, if I'm under a lot of pressure, I'll do 2, 3 to just get them off me, and then 5. But if you do that, then you can't do the combo with the 3 skill. So you've got to either wait in Celestial Avatar longer until the 3's up again, or just save it and then use the 3. I go in stealth, Greatsword 2 animation while I'm in stealth. They can't see it, they're CC'd, and then they get bursted. And then you can also follow up with the Hilt Bash into the Greatsword 2 again. Then you want to swap into your maces while you're in melee range. Use the 2 and the 4. And then you want to make sure that you land your Mace 3. Land the Mace 3, hit with the Mace 5, and if you get the reset, immediately do Mace 5 again, and then 4 and 2. And then since you can't get your reset again, you're going to save your Mace 3 for when you get your weapon swap, and then you're going to use the 3 and to swap into Greatsword 2. So basically you're just trying to get as many synergies with Remorseless as possible to get heavy hitting mauls, and then also you can do sort of kind of good damage with like Thistle Guard when you've landed like your CC into that, or just Wild Strikes in general. Even if it doesn't crit, it's going to do a good amount of damage because you're going to CC them, and then you're going to get the Carnivore lifesteal. So that's pretty much the idea here. If you do need to disengage though, you've got your Smoke Scale still, but you don't want to be swapping into the Smoke Scale too often, because you're not Beast Mastery, and therefore you can have your pet die very easily, and the cooldown is going to be longer on the pet swap. So generally just stick in the Chak Striker, and if it dies, then so be it, let it die. Don't swap pet immediately, because then it's going to be on cooldown, and then you can't use the Smoke Scale whenever you want if you need to disengage. So yeah, you just need to swap into the Smoke Scale, use the F2, and then you've got blast finishers, right, with the 3 in both weapon sets will give you a finisher to get stealth, and then of course Celestial Avatar 3 also is a blast to get you more stealth. So those are kind of how you disengage from fights as a full melee build. While I think this is a better build for PvP, I've been doing a lot of PvP commentaries, so let's give World vs. World a shot this time. So in this situation, I'm in a 1v2 against a Soul Beast, looks like they're Condi, I've got a short bow, and a Deadeye. Now, I need to pressure the Deadeye because they're just going to free cast on me, and I can't really do anything if they're doing so much damage on me. I could just cleanse the Soul Beast, but yeah, I need to stay on this Deadeye. I CC them with my Celestial Avatar, and I just get some chill on them with the CA4 skill there. You can actually use it aggressively, like on Elementalists. And I land my Mace 3 on the Deadeye, but I don't have much to combo with it, though my Chak Striker follows through. I use my Elite skill to get some damage immunity so I can cleave the Thief's down state and go into CA, get the 3 off before I leave, and then do my Greatsword 2-5-2 combo. Now there's a third here, it's a Ranger. They're going to revive this Deadeye. I can't really do too much about that because I'm out of damage. I used it all to get the Deadeye down. So I'm using the stability here, and I'm going to try to, CA3 to daze them, and then just get out, look for a better situation. Line of sight here to maybe pull them closer to me because they're all just kind of abusing ranged. I'm on a full melee build and just using my 2 skill there. I use the CA3 from behind to try to like re-engage, but they avoid that. And I'm getting CC spammed. I have to keep line of sighting behind trees. The Deadeye shadow steps aggressively on me, and they're actually using staff, like not the best Deadeye to be honest. Staff is not great, but we're gonna try to keep not getting destroyed by these CCs. Like when you're outnumbered, you get CC'd a lot because they just spam CC, and it generally gives them a lot of value to do that. But we have 3 stun breaks, we have stability, and we've got actually 2 sources of stability. So we have a lot of ways to survive being outnumbered on this build. Now I'm trying to pull them in a more advantageous situation for myself, but they're kind of playing very safely, and it's hard for me to actually get them out of positioning because they're playing so safely. But we're going to try to land our combo here. I'm getting blinded, and that's going to prevent me from doing anything CC'd. I get my stability here. I'm going to try to go for the CA3 on them, but I get CC'd by a pet, I believe it was, or maybe that was a thief. I land my Mace 3 on one of them, but yeah, there's just so much pressure on me that I have to back up again, try to get more advantageous positioning again, and just kind of heal myself while we're waiting for that. Get my healing spring out and just sit in it, get some regeneration, and try to pull this Deadeye into the line of sight here. I'm going to actually pull them all the way to the camp here, and the Soul Beast goes out of positioning, so I land my Mace Burst on them by baiting them into the close quarters with me, and I land my Nature Strength there actually, so my Mace skills are reset, so I know that as soon as I leave, I can do them again. I don't land my Mace 3 though, but I can go into my Greatsword and kite and look for another situation. Yeah, so I didn't land my combo there, so I kind of need to kite and look for another situation again. I land my Greatsword Burst though, and we're actually gonna down this Deadeye here, it looks like. Yeah, we get them with the CC burst from the Mace, and we need to cleave this out, but the guards from the nearby tower, which doesn't, it's not even ours or theirs, it's just going to cleave the Deadeye out there, and my allies have actually arrived. That's kind of how you want to bait people into melee range with you, by constantly line of sighting and then going in with your CC combo. Now in this situation, I'm getting ganked by a Fresh Air Weaver, and I'm just going to use my CA to get stability here so I don't get CC'd. They use their burst on me, but I just heal and try to survive through it. They've got stability from their barrier, so I don't really want to burst them anyways. And we're just kind of waiting out their defensive cooldowns that they're just spamming non-stop. I've got my immunity up, I CC them, and I'm going to try to land my Greatsword Burst, but they've got permanent super speed as a Fresh Air Weaver, so we need to just keep baiting out their cooldowns until we can land a CC on them, and just keep sustaining. This build has a lot of survivability against power builds because of the permanent protection that we get from dodging, from the Mace 3, and from the Protect Me utility. I do land my Mace 3, but they've got stability again, but they are kind of running out of cooldowns. I land the CA3 so I can go in with my, I don't have my Greatsword 2 up, unfortunately, and they've used their last charge of the stability stance there, I believe, so we can actually go in now for the damage. I put my pet on them, which is actually kind of taxing them, even though they're kiting me a lot. And I'm going to go in for the Mace 3 here, but I want to bait their dodge first. They bait it, but of course they use a double dodge, so that's, yeah, not great. But they've used their double dodge, which means I can go in for my secondary Greatsword Burst, and we're just going to keep chasing them here. They use a lot of their cooldowns. They're pretty low on health. I can use my CA3, cleanse the blind with my CA2. They dodge and dodge again. Yeah, they're just trying to kite me and out position me, but I keep running at them, and they don't really do that much damage, so we're constantly just running at them. It's kind of how this build works against something that's more mobile than it, and Fresh Air Weaver is one of the more mobile builds. Now I can't land my Greatsword 5, but we can keep dazing them, and we can keep taxing them with the pet. Here's the Arcane Shield again. They CC me, but they missed all their burst damage. And their stability, I'm kind of waiting for it to run out so that I can use my CA3. And then into the Mace 3 combo, into the Mace 5. And they're pretty low. I can use my Greatsword 3 to follow up, but they use their Obsidian Flesh to go invulnerable. And the pet is almost finishing them off here with the Chak Striker. So you can see the value of the Chak Striker to kind of pressure targets while you're a melee, so that the pet is kind of ranged. And they've got their stability stance again, so they've got half their health in barrier, so we can't really do damage to them, but we're just waiting that out. I can go for the CA3 here to immobilize them, into the Mace, into the Greatsword 2. I get the Greatsword 5 and we stun them into the Greatsword 2, and we just need to finish them off here. I can swap into the Chak Striker, but it's a 12-second cooldown for that. CA3, and we're going to get the Mace 2 or the Mace 3 here and finish them off. So you can kind of see getting kited on this build, it's not that rewarding, and that's why in PvP I think the build is a little bit better because you're forced to fight around objectives. In World vs. World, you can kind of just go wherever. Here's a 1v1 with a Celestial Harbinger. This is one of the hardest 1v1s in the game, and my build isn't necessarily the best into it either, though it has some ways to kill me. I have some ways to kill it as well because I have a lot of CC. It has a lot of conditions, and it can kill my pet. But I don't really rely on the pet, so it's not that big of a deal. So what my idea here is to kill the Celestial Harbinger is I need to, first of all, survive. So I need to play extremely carefully sometimes when I'm getting CC'd like this and eating all those conditions. I use all of my elite skill and my heal skill to cleanse, but I need to basically land a CC combo on them when they don't have their stability up, which they can get from entering into Shroud or their elite skill. And I also need to kind of like not use my CC combo when they have a dodge up, because it's a telegraphed animation. They know to dodge that Mace 3. And if I was a little bit more comfortable on this build, because this is like my second day or first day playing it, I'd be a little bit better at baiting out the dodges of the Harbinger, but I'm kind of like focusing too much on my build and not on them. So what we need to do here is CC this, and we do get the protection from the Absorption Sigil there. Remember that your Mace has the Absorption Sigil, so that is going to give you the boon ripping potential if you disable them. We get our Greatsword 5 into the Greatsword 2, but they have protection, so it doesn't do that much damage. I'm going to CC them again, hopefully here to land a Greatsword 2, and we get that off, but they have a lot of weakness spam from the Shroud, and they're going to go into their elite, so we can't really do anything right now. I have to dodge so I don't get torched, and I need to cleanse all these conditions, but there's so many of them that, yeah, it's just going to be covered. I keep using the CA2, Seed of Life, but it still doesn't cleanse all of them, so I need to use my elite skill here. Greatsword 2 into 5 into 2 combo, and I wasted my stun there, my Daze from the Glyph of Equality. Probably shouldn't have done that. They go into Shroud, so I can't CC them. I need to back off. I go into my Celestial Avatar. I'm going to use the 3 skill to stun them and land my Greatsword, but I tried to stay out of the mark, and that meant that I was not going to land the Greatsword because I tried to play too safely. I need to play more aggressively. The thing about Harbingers is that all their sustain is kind of passive, so they don't really need to play into it. They just need to do their rotation, and that means that if I don't play aggressively, I'll never kill them. But if I do play too aggressively, then they'll just eventually kill me. So it's kind of like a battle of optimization to fight this build, which is why it's a good test of whether your build is good enough, but generally not that good of a test because Celestial Harbinger is just overpowered. So we're going to go into stealth here with the Smoke Scale combo into Greatsword 3 just to give us some more time. I'm going to use my Greatsword 4 here to be able to survive long enough to get the Healing Spring value. And they're just kiting me. I use the Greatsword 2. No, I don't use it yet. It's on cooldown. I CC them with the Glyph of Equality so they can't attack me back, but they go into Shroud. I land my Mace 3 into the Mace 5, and that's pretty good because we remove their protection, and they're kind of CC'd here. We can finish them off if we just get the Greatsword combo off, but they're moving around a lot. I use the Greatsword 3 to get in range, but they pull me, and I'm in a lot of trouble because I'm getting Vital Drawed here. I'm getting CC'd, and I have a lot of Torment on me. I need to use this 3 skill here to disable them and land my combo. This is good. I can land my Greatsword 5 here maybe. There it is, but they dodge immediately, and I get them with the Mace 3 into the Mace 5. So those CC chains really came in clutch there at the end. Now here's a 1v1 against a Celestial Scepter Catalyst. This is probably one of the hardest matchups you can go against because stability counters me, and they have so much singular stability. So what I need to do is do like multiple CCs in a row to get out the stability, but they still have Armor of Earth, so it's kind of a counter. So yeah, we need to survive all of this burning that I'm getting, and the CA4 right there gives chill, so that's kind of nice in this matchup because elementalists do not like chill. they dodge my Mace 3, which is important for me to not get dodged. Not only because I want to land the stun, but I also want to get the Nature's Strength charges, which I'm not going to get if they dodge all my attacks. So I'm just kind of using my CA abilities aggressively here. I'm not saving them for a combo because I'm just so pressured here. I do land my Mace abilities, get the reset on them, but the stability is up, so I can't really do too much damage here. They're trying to focus my pet actually, which is a good idea because I can't revive it now. So we're in a bad spot without my pet, but as I said, I don't really rely on my pet that much in this 1v1 or in any situation, though I can kind of like get some disengage from the stealth of the smoke scale, and the Chak Striker does add a lot of damage, but it's mostly focused on, you know, what I'm doing. I can also give my pet Remorseless, or is it Ruthlessness or Remorseless? I keep forgetting, I confuse the name there, but yeah, I can give my pet that buff, but it's generally not going to get too much value from it. Anyways, we're getting a lot of burn on us, and we need to keep cleansing with the Seed of Life here, using the Mace skills. We've got the stability out, so I need to land my Mace 3 into the Greatsword 2, Greatsword 5 combo, and they dodge out of that because I didn't use the Greatsword 5 from behind, so it was just a daze. But we're going to go back into Celestial Avatar, keep using the 5 skill to pressure them. People generally can't stand near you when you're doing that, since we're so tanky and it does so much counter pressure and slows them. So it's a pretty good skill to constantly use to counter pressure in these kind of melee-ish 1v1s. And we've got Celestial Avatar here while we're CC'd to daze them. They have Armor of Earth to get stability again. And there's just so many animations that are going off from the Catalyst that it's not really hard. It's hard for me to play around something specific. So I'm kind of just playing rotationally to try to do as much damage as possible, not really look for a combo window because, yeah, it's not really the best matchup. But we don't get the Celestial Avatar 3 off before we leave. There's not really much I can do here. My Vengeance stacks aren't that high, so even if I land this, it doesn't reset, but I can use there it is right there, the Mace 3, and if I land it, I can do the Greatsword 2 into Greatsword 5 into Greatsword 2 combo. Now there's also a hammer version of this build, which you essentially run the exact same build, same sigils as you would on the Mace, but you just replace the maces with the hammer. You don't want to replace the Greatsword with anything because that's like in these outnumbered situations, the Greatsword is going to give you way more survivability than any of the other two because they don't really have any mobility or like hard blocks. So yeah, you want the Greatsword for sure, or Mace or hammer, but I think the maces are better in general because they give you a little bit more sustained damage, a little bit more self-sustain as well, but the hammer gives you a little bit more burst, though the Greatsword is kind of bursty anyways. But yeah, here's just a little bit of a bonus clip. And in these outnumbered situations, you really need survivability through disengage, and this is a full melee build, so we're kind of like in a bad situation, but we're counter pressuring, which is generally enough in some situations to survive long enough until you can get to a better situation. Now I've used my smoke scale pet, and I use the Celestial Avatar 3 to get some long stealth here to disengage, but they're going to chase me, and I've got not many cooldowns, so I'm just kind of waiting for that. I use my Protect Me preemptively, but they didn't end up hitting me, so kind of wasted that. I use the Celestial Avatar to get some super speed and healing, and we get out of range of them with the backwards lightning reflexes, but they are chasing very hard. They mount up out of combat just to keep me in combat, so they're trying extremely hard. They really want this kill. I go for the counter pressure because I've got nothing else to use right now. They knock me down in my Celestial Avatar, so I leave it to get stealth so they can't burst me while I'm stunned. And I'm using the Hammer 5 to get some mobility. They're going to finally dismount because they realize that their teammate is not doing enough damage. So I'm going to keep trying to juke here. You can use the backwards lightning reflexes to get out of that Dragon's Tooth animation. While I have the Protect Me up, I don't want to dodge because I'm getting value from the barrier. And I'm just going to CC them, go back and forth. I get stunned in my Greatsword 3, so that's really bad. I need to use my Hammer 3 and 5 in the water field there to sustain. And yeah, I'm just getting tons of conditions on me. I think this is a Condi mech and a Fresher Weaver. So yeah, we just need to get out of there. and we actually get out of combat. So I'm able to mount using the stealth. I get out of combat using the mobility to get, you know, out of range to get out of combat. But they keep me in combat here through the, just, I don't know, the long range of the lance. I didn't see it. So they get me back in combat. I'm kind of out of mobility, so I need to stand my ground at the line of sight here. Use the protect me to get out of that long gale stun. I believe that's the gale from the focus. And just keep CCing them, dodge this Dragon's Tooth while I'm in stealth, and use the Greatsword 3 to get some distance. But they're mounting up again to keep me in combat. And I'm going to use the block here, try to CC them, but they're blinding me. And they've got more on me now. I get stunned in my leap animation. I'm going to go into CA to daze them, use my heal, and I'm going to leap off this edge with the hammer 5 and get into the water. But I'm going to get CC'd before I land my stability, and I'm going to be taken out. But that's generally how you want to be playing this build. It's decent for survivability, but you really need to be using the stealth and disengage from the smoke scale to survive in these outnumbered situations. But if you like this content, then please like and subscribe. Support me by clicking any of the links in the description, and check out guildgen.com for any of the new builds, as they will be updated pretty soon. We've pretty much gone through all the builds, so yeah, check that out, and I will see you all next time.